by way of introduction, my full-time focus at the moment is I'm a manager of SouthStart. I will speak more to that later, but it's a major deep technology festival, which is running this November. So I will touch on that after, but I've been known for starting presentations and people are like, what do you actually do? So my presentation I have called Finding a Way Through an Unknown Path, and that is something that is quite important to me, and even in introductions, etc. People so often are like, so what do you do and who are you? And it's like, I'm just someone that's just exploring, and that sort of a broader sort of blanket introduction I think is suitable. For this story, I'm going to start off with buckets of cherries. When I was 16, so I grew up on a cherry orchard in Montacute, and it was amazing, motorbike riding, living in the country, but I lived 10, 15 minutes away from the city, but everyone sort of was like, oh, what's it like to live on a property? So it was this foreign thing, which was really interesting to learn about. But I actually had the opportunity to go to India on a school trip, but my parents weren't in a financial position to send me there, so I worked for 2 summers in a row, from like 7 to 6, picking cherries. So if anyone has ever, been in that position, you know that you start to dream about cherries and it becomes like you gamify it. So anyway, so that was sort of how this will begin, and that led me to India. It's a shame you can't really see that properly, but so when I was in the end of year 11, that was my first time I've ever been overseas, and I think it's safe to say that as a blanket statement for an introduction to a foreign culture for a first time, India was a pretty full-on one. So we spent 6 weeks there, working across several child orphanages, daycare centres, went to Mother Teresa's home, Mithra, this particular place was. So that really, I think, was a turning moment for me, just going into year 12 particularly, and having huge struggles with, like, what am I doing? Like, those 4 subjects, what on earth? Like, I'm interested in art, but I like PE, and all of these other things, but how do I narrow that down in the context of my career? So going to India, I really think was a critical time in my life to actually give me the confidence to be like, well, there's other things out there, which may not necessarily have presence within our current education system. So I then click next. I had another photo in there, but I've excluded it. I'm just going to click. I had another photo, which I think is quite important. It was on the first page, and it's I took it on the River Ganges in Varanasi, and it was of children flying kites. And that, for me, became a huge symbol. I think someone that's always been a bit sentimental, like I was always had this fascination with, like, what that symbolizes, just me seeing these children sort of being free and, like, it was kind of, so that sort of carried through and always got me thinking about the symbol that can be created through kites and the action of flying. Anyway, after that, long story short, going into year 12, I was like, I still don't know what to do. I was enrolled in Bachelor of Law, but again, that was led by my sort of interest area and social sort of avenue. So I was like, I'll be a human rights lawyer, but I don't necessarily, looking back, think that I wanted to be a lawyer as such. So I had a gap year because I was lost. And at the time, and thankfully it's changing now, but this was like, going back 7 years ago, and I was one of 4 people in my year to have a gap year, coming from a very academic school. It was like, oh my God, like, even my parents, I was really lucky, but always like too supportive, but like, do whatever you want, which I found quite frustrating because I then saw that as a negative versus what my teachers were telling me. So I had a gap year. I worked at a summer camp in America as a water ski instructor. And again, just that sense of freedom, I say, was a blessing and a curse, because it was like, oh my God, I'm getting further and further away from this structured system, which I'm supposed to be going back into. So the year after, I got back to Adelaide. These are some of the friends. You can see it on here. Anyway, just basically spent 3 months with people. No technology, nothing, just, going backpacking hostels in the US and, like, just having that, like, oh my God, I haven't had this before. And I worked my butt off to get there, working in cafes, etc. But again, just coming back to Adelaide was like, none of my friends sort of understood what it was like to just have this sort of sense of I can do whatever I want for a year with limitations, of course. So I came back to Adelaide, and I call like 2014 to 2016 like an existential dilemma. So long story short, because it is a very long story, 2014 I went to uni, I studied law, I had all these app ideas, etc. In my first year of uni, I entered an idea for a competition which was at the time run by Flinders Partners. So if anyone's familiar with the startup ecosystem, going into an incubator or accelerator type of environment, that was probably the closest I came to it at that time. And it led to me walking, sitting in this workshop with career professionals, PhD, like professors, etc. And I was like, I do not belong here. And I remember that so vividly because I texted my mom, like, the minute walking through the door, I was like, oh my God, Mom, like, I'm going to go home. What am I doing here? Because I just didn't feel like I had the knowledge, the capability, or that for whatever reason at the time wasn't seen as a welcoming environment. But what it did was spark my interest in innovation and entrepreneurship. As much as I don't resonate with those terms, it was like, okay, I can take these other experiences and actually translate them through, whether it's a product or a career of purpose. And that doesn't necessarily have to be within the legal field. So after a few years, I transferred long story, but I've got a degree in international business, but that was after a route of chopping and changing between things. And even to this day, I came out of that degree not knowing what a startup was, which I think is really bad. Lucky it's changing now. But I traveled and I went to America, continued to work as a recruiter, full Camp America for 4 years. So going to career events, speaking to teachers, speaking to students, and really, as I'm sure you've all had, developed that awareness of the unconscious bias that exists within the work education system, but also growing up in our lives. Like what we then do is heavily dictated or influenced by our parents. So for me, that was really interesting and fascinated me. It was like, I've got students coming up to me who are quite interested in having a gap year, but then their parents are coming, pulling their hand away saying, don't talk to her, keep moving on. So that was really interesting and I think pushed me more towards what I'll come to later. Worked in hospitality, blah, blah, blah. So had a bit of a sporadic sort of experience, which then led me to Indonesia. So going into 2017 now, still didn't know what I was doing, was in sort of the final year of my degree, came across an internship through ACS Seminars. Many of you may be familiar, you may be not, but when I worked in a tech incubator in Jakarta, and I remember at the time, because I worked in a cafe, I'm not technical at all, and my boss laughing at me and everyone being like, oh, Danielle, this is perfect, like, because finally we'll just be able to be a bit crazy and like try to make these ideas, whatever they are, like come to life. So I didn't know what an incubator was, I didn't know what a startup was, like I remember getting that invitation and being like, okay, I don't know what this is, but let's do it. So spent a few months in Indonesia, visiting the likes of Google, etc. And I worked in this incubator my project was for a company called Genders, which is a facial recognition company. It's an AI tech startup that was using the Facebook API and user-generated content to build their algorithm. And for me, that was the biggest slap in my face of, oh my God, here I am looking at, what the techies are doing, building a software which enables retail owners to understand the age, the emotion, the gender of their customers based on a technology which they're building off of our images that we're putting on Facebook. So for me, that was the aha moment because I was like, I know nothing and I am a consumer of this social media. And, I know for sure that I'm not the only one. Like my generation and generations to come being this sort of digital native, consumer, demographic. I saw that as a huge problem and I was like, well, how do we change this? Because by the time that systems get up to date, etc., it's going to be too late. So that was my moment. And I've actually got a tattoo of this, which it's And Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I know it's got its faults, but as an academic theory that heavily underpins business, like theory, was drilled into me in every subject just about in uni. I sort of brought this up and I was like, well, if you apply this sort of, theory of psychology to social media and to the digital landscape, you could almost argue that for my age group and people that have, been on Facebook and Instagram, etc., since like year, 9, it's become a physiological part of our life, like more or less. Typically it's like, yes, we need water, yes, we need food. Now we need to some extent, communicate online. So what does that mean for where we sit? At the esteem level, and is that intrinsically linked to like depression and anxiety and mental illness and things which are important to talk about? But I was at an event last night and it was like, it's great to raise awareness, but what are we doing to actually flip the coin and say this is the solution? So this became something that I was just fascinated. I was like, how could you apply that to a business model and to a description of today's landscape and the lack of, action and education that exists? So linking back to my kite sort of philosophy, had an idea. Sasha has been there. I've had this what if I had a business school kite fly, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it just got me thinking, and I was like, I need someone technical because I don't know what I'm talking about. One of my best friends at high school, I knew made rocket launches and was like a techie, but I hadn't spoken to him for years because we were both traveling. And I was like, this is a screenshot in 2017. I was like, hey, look, it's random, but you're the first person I thought of. And I was like, let's start a business. And we had this idea, and since then I won't go into it, but that in my vision is one day kite fly, that's the company that I'd like to build. Save the story. It's still a work in progress, but since then, Ludwig, so he's my co-founder, he's a machine learning engineer, and Philip, another guy that we've met, is in quantum. So we're looking in the tech spec like we are, but for me, I'm in no rush to get into a startup because I want to de-risk it, etc. But this just became like, okay, well, if I've got this idea, how about I keep that brewing away and all these experiences moving forward as I start to build, learn more, I just have constant reference to that. So I just registered a business called SouthStart Creations, which was really nothing, but it was just, the intention was that it would become my brand because it didn't represent just me personally, but it represented the experiences that I'd gone through, but more importantly, the people that I'd met and, this different combination of cultures and what we could actually, how could we foster that? So it's kind of a test bed that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to start some sort of business. I am damn sure that I want to do it with Ludwig and Philip because I know that we've got, the cultural fit. I know what I believe in. And that was all I needed, to have the confidence to move forward. So when I got back, I messaged Moonshine Lab, the tech incubator. I saw an article and I was like, hey, there's an incubator. I've just been in an incubator. Can I have an internship? I was still finishing off uni. And then that led me to accidentally sort of co-found a startup called Loot, which was a fantastic learning curve for me. It's essentially a live pitch feedback tool for startup events. So from that day on, it was like, okay, what is the startup ecosystem? What's a startup, first of all? What's the startup ecosystem? What are the incubators? What are accelerators? What is that process? Who are the people behind them? And that really allowed me to develop a macro view of what not just South Australia, but the Australian ecosystem looks like. So I was contacting, because I knew nothing. Ignorance is bliss, contacted StartMate, Blackbird, these top programs, can we do some validation around this product? But then I guess a year after that, I was like, hey, my network has become heavily, stands heavily within this ecosystem as a result for that. So that was a fantastic learning curve for me. I lived in Germany for a few months, went to TechCrunch, sort of continued to understand, try to learn more, did some courses in website building, etc. on Udemy, did a blockchain course. I started writing about what I was learning. So that's something that I would really encourage any of your students, even yourselves personally. It's just, I have a bit of I've done that since I was 10, I just kept a journal, just an audio journal, just not necessary to look back on, but just at that moment to reflect on what has happened so far. And I think that is a really valuable tool in, being able to understand my emotions, be able to, question why I believe in this, why I feel in this, and anyway, so that I started writing, I started using LinkedIn more because I was like, oh, my dad uses LinkedIn, but like, I don't know what it is. And it became one of the most powerful tools in like building my friendship base and like, you know, network. Again, don't really like that word, but within, you know, a broader context. So just a period of exploration. Last year I went to China, spent 3 months there, through another, so I did Venture Dawn, did a few different innovation programs, and I did this Asia Pacific Innovation Academy with Google, and we came out with another startup idea called Fern, which is a self-watering pot plant. We got investment interest, but I think at the end of the day, even with Luke, even with Fern, like there've been amazing projects, but I always went into them as this is a learning curve for me because it's not necessarily like my passion, which I believe is hugely important to have the motivation to keep moving forward. So that is a project that I worked on last year. All the while, if I go right, all the while, I think I've mixed up, starting on SouthStart. So, my story is messy, and I'm quite open about that because that's what it's like to be within this, you know, startup, like evolution of a career and entering a highly ambiguous path, which, let's face it, any future, you know, career pathways are going to need a combination of soft skills, tech skills, etc. So I guess for me, that's given confidence in what I used to see as a bad thing. Even, you know, year 12, uni, you're not choosing this like one set, like career category. I've come to accept that that's actually become my biggest asset because having an exposure to a variety of things allows you to think differently. So last year, Moonshine, and Craig acquired SouthStart. So SouthStart was an event that was founded in 2013. It was an annual startup conference. The team behind it ran a co-working space downstairs, which we're now in. And it came to a point, it was a capacity thing. They had their own company. So last year they put a call to action out asking if, you know, interested parties to take it over. So we put a bid in, were successful in that, got some government funding, and we set out to take over SouthStart. I had no idea what I was in for. I just thought it was like, yeah, write the grant application and keep doing this freelance work with like startups, and but quickly realized that the exposure that I'd had at TechCrunch and Rise and other technology festivals that exist in the world wasn't held by the majority of people here. And even at a government level, at an industry level, there was a lot of, I guess, vision selling. And coming into it as a young person, and then like, you know, Craig as an American that's only moved here for a year, and then like obviously, thankfully, Jason had his network, but it was a really interesting, you know, delving into the different attitudes that exist here. So even things like getting sponsorship, like obviously with anything, when you're repositioning the brand, it was a huge learning curve, but it was successful. So we ran a 2-day deep technology conference at Adelaide Town Hall alongside an investor showcase, essentially creating a platform for the community to come together and celebrate all things, you know, innovation, technology, just understanding that people are in different areas and the knowledge that is often held within the deep technology sector isn't fed down through the channels. So how do we fix that was one of the biggest questions. So that went well. Then luckily for us again, this year we've been further supported by Fix through the Office of Chief Entrepreneur to refuel SouthStart and expand it. So we are currently working on a 1-week deep technology festival, which is heavily impact driven. So at the end of the day, I do not care about technology. Like I say that, like technology itself, but what I care about is the opportunities and the way that people are affected by technology. And it's become very clear that the majority, like a lot of people are that way. At the end of the day, as humans, you know, we're selfish, like inherently selfish, and look, you know, have an inner sort of desire to feel safe, and coming back to Maslow's, like having, family around us, people, etc. And quite often systems drive us in a way that we may not necessarily want to be in, but we conform to because it's the way that we have to be. So, essentially, by way of format, I'll send some information after, but it's Monday to Friday, looking at areas like cybersecurity, like AI, blockchain, defense, but also looking at areas like just education in its current form, social impact, renewables, energy. So looking at all these different industry verticals and combining them together to create a convergence. So if any of you are familiar with design thinking, divergent, like look at everything and then bring it all together. That's the convergent aspect. So I really welcome you all to look into it further. We will be having announcements within the end of the month. Some of the speakers that we've had, for example, I had a photo of him before accidentally. Cam Adams from Canva came over. We had Flavia from Fleet Space. So bringing really some of the top change makers, thought leaders. We're not interested in getting even though we respect what they do, like the heads of marketing, etc., is fantastic. But who are the people that are living and breathing what we're encouraging people to do at both, with FIPS, with schools having, now an innovation vertical, etc. How are we demonstrating that? So that's what SouthStart is now. And I guess just as a conclusion and leading in, just some food for thought, and I know that Adelaide recently ran a Shark Tank program, which some of you may or may not have been involved in, and I spent some time with my old high school going and talking to students about, how do you translate where they're being delivered by way of a program, so going from idea to MVP and pitching for investment, etc. How do you get deeper? So step one, when you try to define a problem, it's like so often people are like, oh, okay, a problem is that, my clothes don't fit perfectly and things like that. But it's like, what are actually like the moonshot problems, which really, having spent a lot of time elsewhere, coming back to Adelaide, that's still something that I see day in, day out, is we're encouraging people to commercialize ideas, like start a startup, but we're not educating them on the challenges that's involved with that. The fact that I grew up, which again, I must have sent the wrong slide, but my dad, and this is my personal thing, is like, and it makes me quite like, oh, but my dad had a telecommunications company when I started when I was 5. And it wasn't until I was in that incubator in Jakarta that I was like, satellites, IoT, like technology, etc. That's what my dad does. And that's what he spent years building a company around, which eventually turned into Aussie Broadband and was involved in that. And it's, for so long, I grew up thinking that what my dad does, I never want to do, because it makes, him and mum fight, because it's like, he'll go off, like, it's the money thing and everything, and it's, like an investment round, and a lot of family friends around me were in the early stages of, the dot-com bubble, and I always view that as a negative, because there wasn't the support around me at school to understand that. And that, I think, is a huge thing, is, all of the students that you're teaching and that are coming through, they're all largely influenced by their family environment. So if we don't recognise what their family environment is and help them understand it, I really think that we're not going to pull this whole sort of future industry conversation off, because that is, for me, step one, is how do you get the people around them that they love and that mould their lives and actually help them better connect with them and create that supportive environment, both in the education system but also externally, so that they can move forward. So I speak about EQ, emotional intelligence, and it's, for me, when we're speaking about AI and tech and exponential technologies, etc., what is the role of the human becoming more and more? And it's that empathetic, approach to situations. It's how do we, that emotion, which traditionally people may not necessarily feel comfortable about talk about. So that piece, I think, is just hugely important. So I just wanted to give that spiel. So, and then this is just a quote from Muhammad Yunus, which I really believe resonates strongly. We prepare our students for jobs and careers, but we don't teach them to think as individuals. about what kind of world they would create. So often it's what problem exists in your life right now, but what world, like what encompasses all of that. So thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Danielle? Anyone? Questions? What I can do is get some more information about the festival and from you, and what we'll do is we can send an email out to the database as well as put it up on the ACS website as well, so you guys can access that.
Thank you.